Welcome, everybody, to another edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I am your host, Art Stapleton, and we are here at 1925 Giants Drive, shadow of MetLife Stadium. Another training camp practice just ended, and we are coming to you from the parking lot adjacent to the facility building at the practice fields right over there. And it's game day again for the Giants coming up very soon in Houston on Saturday. And yes, Giants fans, you are going to get to see your starters. Daniel Jones, his first game action since his ACL 9 months ago. Beard and all, Daniel Jones will be on the field getting ready to see his first game action since the first quarter, really the first play of the second quarter, against the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. It's been a long time for Daniel Jones. The journey has been pretty wild, and he's taken every rep this summer with the first team. And, you know, other than a handful of sessions of 7-on-7, it's been all 11-on-11. Going up in joint practices against the Detroit Lions. Camp started early on, was a little up and down. Timing was a question. Now, 3 weeks later, they've got the timing working. Daniel Jones and his receivers really have started to click in practice, and it's exactly what the Giants need out of this offense. So that will be a big story this weekend. But before we get into today's show, and today's show is a running back special. Inside the running backs, you think about the offseason, and this is going to be the year without Saquon Barkley. How do you replace Saquon Barkley? Well, the Giants have a different running backs room. You can't replace that 26 with a new 26. Motor Singletary comes over from, ironically, the Texans, comes into this building to lead the running back room. But there are pieces behind them that people are very excited about. We'll get to that. But let's talk practice today. Malik Neighbors back on the field, participating in practice. The ankle, not a problem. During position drills, he's jumping up on one leg, making one-handed catches during a specific one-handed catch drill. So everybody calm down. But Malik Neighbors, you could see him on the field in Houston on Saturday, catching passes from Daniel Jones. Obviously, he played 12 plays in the preseason opener, did not get a target from Drew Lock, but Neighbors was out there, got a feel for what it's like to be in an NFL game. So I would think if all goes well, recuperating off of practice today, that there's nothing that lingers from the ankle, and there's no reason to think there will be. I think you may see Malik Neighbors on the field with Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton out there in Houston against a very good team in the Houston Texans, a popular pick as one of the teams to compete and contend with the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC for a bid in the Super Bowl. So he was out of practice. Another running back we can talk about is Tyrone Tracy. Yes, in live tweeting and watching it as it happened the other day, Tyrone Tracy looked like he'd be out for the season. He was on a kickoff return, muffed the kickoff, reached back to grab the football. His right ankle buckled, looked like it may have been a dislocation or something really, really bad. The Giants training staff rushed onto the field, put him in an air cast, got him on a cart, got him off. He was heading to HHS, Hospital for Special Surgery. Giants released that information. And at that point, it was, okay, just tell us the severity and will he be okay for 2025? Well, as it turns out, from what I understand, Tyrone Tracy, once he got back inside the building, it was really just a scare. And you'd almost think it was a WWE work that they faked it all. Or as I said to someone today, if it was a fire alarm-esque drill that the medical team was running. What do you do if a player falls and has an injury and you come off the sideline and you simulate a broken ankle or a broken leg, and you have to do the air cast and how things happen? You'd almost buy that that's what happened, because watching Tracy today, yes, he was on the field with the training staff on a far field, but he's running the agility ladder, and you would not know that Tyrone Tracy was in a boot 48 hours earlier. And we were all kind of, putting up the when will Tyrone Tracy come back to be comeback player of the year in 2025. But now I think next week he's back in practice for the Giants and moving forward the way he was. So let's talk about that. The one starter that I don't believe we'll see this weekend is John Runyon. I think they'll give him the weekend. He tweaked his shoulder. You don't want that to become more than what it is. So I think you'll see Aaron Stinney at left guard. I think you'll see Greg Van Roten at right guard. And I think you'll see John Michael Schmitz back at center. You'll have Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle and Andrew Thomas at left tackle. That should be your starting line with Daniel Jones under center. I mentioned the receivers, and Devin Singletary as your starter. Now let's talk about that so we can get into these interviews that I've done with the running back room. Now, if you didn't catch my story back in the spring, it was the idea of what will the Giants do? It was life after Saquon Barkley. And I went back to the 2006 season when Tiki Barber retired going into 2007. And the idea was that the Giants would never be able to replace Tiki Barber. And he had 1,000 yards, 3 of the 4 seasons, I believe, heading into that year. You're talking about the best running back in franchise history. How do they replace Tiki Barber? Well, that year they had a guy named Brandon Jacobs who, yes, he was his backup, but he didn't have a ton of carries in the NFL. And he would be the starter, similar to the way Devin Singletary, let's put it this way, Devin Singletary has more of a resume and experience in the NFL than Brandon Jacobs did at that time. And they had a 7th round pick out of Marshall who did not really have an impact on this team until December. And that was Ahmad Bradshaw. Now, people look back at that team and say, well, they had Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs. Well, Ahmad Bradshaw wasn't used as that guy. They had Reuben Drones, who they expected to have more of an impact than what he did in 2007. And they had Derek Ward. So obviously, earth, wind, and fire. We know how that came about. And the following year, in 2008, really was this running back room. But the Giants did okay in 2007. I don't know if my producer, Paul Wood, can remind me of what happened in 2007. Now, I'm not saying that the Giants are going to repeat that season, but the Giants were able to replace Tiki Barber with a committee with unproven commodities and win a Super Bowl. Now, it took Eli Manning and a defense that was outstanding, especially that defensive front, and what they did at receiver and how good that offensive line was. Well, the Giants are going to need those pieces to come together this year, not to make a run at the Super Bowl. We're not getting ahead of ourselves, but to be competitive. And can it be done? Well, it's going to be hard to deal with the idea that Saquon Barkley is doing what he's going to be doing in Philly, a better line, a better offense, better weapons around him. But the Giants, I think, will have an opportunity this year to attack teams differently with their backfield. I think Devin Singletary will be the lead back. I think he's going to be good both as a runner and out of the backfield. Tyrone Tracy, I mentioned him. As far as what Tracy can do, I think Tracy is a better receiver than what people will think he is. And I think he's going to have opportunities in this offense. So that brings us to the surprise. And I listed him as a breakout this spring. Eric Gray, last year's 5th round pick. I know he did not do well last year, and the fan base turned on him quickly as a punt returner. He ended up getting hurt and then never was able to become a factor offensively. what Eric Gray did in the preseason opener against the Detroit Lions, I think has a lot of people excited for what he's been able to do, not only this summer in practice, but he was able to do in that game. So I was able to catch up to Eric Gray, and now to go to our first interview of today's show. It's Eric Gray and yours truly in the field house after practice earlier this week. How are you feeling? I remember at the end of last season at your locker, you talked about Kyron Williams to me, and you said, nowadays people may forget about you as a rookie, but you'll make them remember you after that. How personal did you take that, and how encouraged were you by that sentiment?
I was definitely encouraged by it, but like I said, I always knew it was me. I always knew, and like I always say, I just had to get back to being me. Get back to being Eric Gray. Like I said, last year I felt like I was making it too much. Like people say, the NFL is this, the NFL is that. It's just football. So I had to get back to being me and doing what I always do.
Did you know that once you started getting run with the offense that you would feel comfortable? And that's me saying you didn't look comfortable in what you were doing last year, but did that kind of put you back to being Eric Gray?
For sure, as well as my mindset, though. I had to get there mentally of knowing, like, just be you. Go out there every day. Don't worry about, what anybody has to say, what's going on around you. Just be you. And every opportunity that you get, take advantage of it and be you.
When you look at, the depth chart, and obviously a tough situation to watch what happened with Tracy, but you guys have all competed in this running back room, and back in the spring the talk was who's going to replace 26, but now all you guys have kind of brought it this camp. Do you feel that? Do you get motivated by that, knowing that all of you guys are kind of not allowing the next guy to just kind of take over?
Yeah, for sure. It's like you said, it's competitive, but my focus every day is just being me. You know what I'm saying? Being me. I feel like if I'm me, and I'm going to do everything I need to do.
What is you? Who is Eric Gray?
What you saw last week, what you saw on the field, and just doing it every day, being consistent. That's me. People talk about the cut and the move. I've been doing that. If you know me, I've been doing that since I was in high school. You know what I mean? So it's just getting back to being me. So thanks to Eric Gray, and now we move from Eric Gray, who put on a show last week, to a sleeper back. And if you listened and you're a loyal listener to the All In podcast, you can go back to the spring when we had Dante Turbo Miller on from South Carolina talking about his opportunity with the Giants. Make sure you go back to the archives, whether it's on Omni, Spotify, anywhere you find your fix for All In. Go and listen to that episode with Dante. And now Turbo is really that fourth guy, and he is going to push for a roster spot. There's no doubt about it. He's had a great summer so far. And brings a different element, speed. So without further ado, let's go to my interview with running backs coach Joel Thomas, who happened to have Alvin Kamara in New Orleans for years. So he knows what it's like to have a good back who can be an impact player in the run and receiving game. And then we'll go to our interview with Turbo Miller, and he talks about what the acclimation period has been like for him and how his mission has been to prove that he's not just a fast player, that he's more than speed. So check out these two interviews, and we'll be back to wrap up and talk about this weekend.
He's had a very, very productive camp. The trait that he has that the others in the room don't necessarily have is the just pure speed, the Tesla start, so to speak. He can get from 0 to 80 just like that. And he started to show a little of that comfort and utilizing that speed and that downhill mentality in the practice reps against Detroit and in some of the game reps the other day. So he's offered more than we envisioned because obviously he was a free player coming off the streets. I mean he came in in March last year, and there really wasn't a lot of film to evaluate, nothing really on the inside game, and he's shown that he doesn't play little, just because he's a shorter stature player. He plays big for how his stature is, so he's not afraid to mix it up on the inside part of the run game and block as well.
Sorry to interrupt you. There are a lot of guys in this league who, the first line in their resume is speed. he's had to come out here and kind of show that he's got more than that. I mean, obviously he has the kind of speed that jumps off the field, but how has he worked on the other parts of his game to kind of show you guys that it's not just a fast player who may have run a nice 40?
I think part of it, I go back to what I started this interview with, is being definitive. Early on, OTAs, through the minicamp, there was some hesitancy as far as hitting something on the inside, and that was without pads. So, as an evaluator, you're like, maybe this guy doesn't want to go in the inside run game. And then as camp has started to developing trust with the line, understanding concepts, where balls are supposed to go, I think the comfort level for him has risen. He understands the job requirements, and if he doesn't, I make sure he does. And he's grasped onto that. All the whole room has. But he's obviously done a nice job on some of the things. Is it perfect? No. There's plenty of stuff to clean up with him and everybody else in the room. But, it's a good first baseline test as far as what we had the other night. And hopefully we can, match and surpass. That's the goal. That's the daily goal. Match and surpass. Get better. So
you come in with the nickname Turbo. We've both actually talked to you about being fast. How much of your quest the last couple months has kind of tried to prove that you're not just a fast guy, that you can do the things that need to be done to play running back in this league?
Honestly, it's just taking coaching, having patience, and then making plays when your number's called. Honestly, the biggest thing in this league is you can't just be fast. You have to be a physical player. You have to know what to do. Obviously, the playbooks in the NFL are a lot different than they are in college. So you got to actually put in the time to get in the position to make those plays. So it don't matter how fast you are. You could be the fastest person in the world, but if you don't know what to do on the play, it don't really matter. So for me, it was really just looking at guys like Devin Singletary and kind of following behind how he does things, how patient he is when he runs the ball. You know what I'm saying? You got to read it, feel it, and then take it. So that's it.
You talked about being fast.
I feel like I have elite speed. I do have elite speed, and that's just gonna be one of my things. I'm always gonna, I'm blessed enough to have that. So, I mean, I'm lucky enough to go out there and be able to display it. Coach puts us in situations, display our talents, and took in the playbook well, and I go out there and put my best foot forward.
When you had a run over here today, when you bounced it to the outside, how much do you sense when DBs are kind of in your wake and you realize if you hit that corner, it's over for them?
Coach teaches us in the RB room a lot of things. You guys know football, so maybe if the corner gets a little too nosy, then you might have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's really just a feel thing too. You just gotta feel that.
What does that feel like, though?
It feels like it's open.
Because you were coming for that. It looked like you may have stepped out of bounds before you took it.
I think I did step out of bounds.
Is that one of those things where you look back on it and you go, man, I had that corner. Like, I should have just bent back a little bit?
I feel like I hit it right. The only thing I did was step out. I was like 30 yards on the field when I did step out.
I know. I was right in front of you.
we ain't sure too much about that. Go out there and make plays. So, yeah.
So thanks to Joel Thomas and Turbo Miller. Very excited to see how this running backs room comes together. Like I said, it's not led by Saquon Barkley, but between Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, Eric Gray, and Turbo Miller, they really have four backs that can contribute on this team. Might not be every week, but they do have a stable of backs now that they can go to. And one interesting one before we close out here, didn't even mention him. Today was his first practice. Joshua Kelly, who played in LA with the Chargers the last couple of years. Giants just signed him as a free agent to bring him in. And he's got an NFL resume. So it'll be interesting to see, are they covering themselves, bringing in Kelly? Could they go as deep as five backs on this team if they have guys who are going to fit in as returners? I don't know if the injury or pseudo injury, the work injury for Tyrone Tracy spooked them into bringing somebody else in. But Joshua Kelly is another back here with the Giants now. Anyone who plays fantasy football knows that he was always the guy that you'd pick up on the waiver wire to protect yourself and handcuff with Austin Eckler with the Chargers. So Joshua Kelly is now here wearing number 23 with the Giants. It'll be interesting to see if he can factor in over these next couple of weeks, or if he's just coming in to kind of push guys and see where he fits. So it was an interesting day here with the Giants out of practice. Again, the highlights: Malik Neighbors, potential to play this weekend. Daniel Jones and the starters on offense will get their first game action. On defense, you will likely see Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Tyler Nubin getting snaps with the ones with Jason Pinnock. That has been Dane Belton for the first 2 weeks of camp. Tyler Nubin has now jumped up and seized that opportunity. Belton working with the twos. It might not necessarily be what Belton did wrong. It might be what Tyler Nubin did right. I'll have something on Nubin later next week. I talked to him one-on-one after practice, and he's excited for the opportunity. So I think you're going to see him in the starting lineup on Saturday against the Texans. We will see where we're at. We'll have everything all over NorthJersey.com. We'll have our rookie report next week. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll have our stock watch after the game to let you know who's up, who's down this week. Tyler Nubin, I have a feeling, is going to be one of those stock up guys. But enjoy the game. Hopefully the Giants don't absorb any more injuries. And if they are injuries, let them be as serious as Tyrone Tracy's injury because, like I said, I think he'll be back on the field next week. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton here at 1925 Giants Drive. It's kind of an experimental show. See if we can get the video going here on site. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. So reminding you all, we are all in. We appreciate you being all in too. We'll talk to you over the weekend.